Welcome to Season 2 of the Bean Pod, a podcast about decentralized finance and the Beanstalk Protocol. I'm your host, Rex. Before we get started, we'd like to again remind everyone that we here at the podcast are super bullish about Beanstalk Protocol and other DeFi projects. But as we've seen time and time again, this is still a risky space. So with that in mind, always do your own research before investing in a project, including anything covered here in the podcast, and never ever invest funds that you can't afford to lose. And with that, on with the show. This first episode of Season 2 of the podcast is being recorded on November 11th, 2022. Usually, we avoid naming specific recording dates because it takes away from the timelessness of podcast episodes. But this date is important because, as I speak, FTX, one of the largest and best-known crypto exchanges, is falling apart. Though we're still learning details, it appears that FTX's leadership used funds that were meant to provide liquidity to users to instead invest in risky projects for personal gain. The liquidity crunch was revealed earlier this week, and since then, withdrawals have been halted, user panic has ensued, and contagion has begun to reach out to other projects and protocols that used FTX's safehouse for their assets. The company's once revered leadership is now in tatters, and the whole situation is turning into a very public disaster. While we may do an episode about the FTX debacle in the future, for now, we don't see any value in adding our commentary to the mix. There are plenty of voices weighing in already, and frankly, we at the podcast don't feel a need to give spotlight to greedy and deceptive individuals. We do, however, want to take a moment to extend our sympathies to anyone who lost funds they invested in FTX. We hope that your loss isn't overwhelming and that you can find solace in people and places beyond the confines of a digital screen. Now, to pivot away and hopefully provide a reprieve from current events, we have what I believe is our first NFT project developer ever on the podcast. Perchy, an artist whose work has become closely associated with the Bankless DAO, has recently sold NFTs of his work called Goblin Town, the newest item in his location series. Much like Perchy's other locations, Goblin Town is something of a crypto project seek and find, and if one looks closely enough, they'll see a familiar barn, silo, and bean logo, though I won't give away exactly where. Perchy is kind enough to join us in the studio today, and frankly, I couldn't be more excited. Perchy, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me on the podcast, and I'm very excited to be here, and happy to talk about NFTs with you. This could be fun.
So how about you just start us off? Tell us a little bit about yourself and your background and how you got into the NFT space.
Yeah, that's a great question. I've told the story a couple times, and it's hard to. I think I started at different places each time I tell it because it's really kind of could say like it starts in different places. Like I got into crypto long before I got into DAOs and NFTs and kind of what I'm doing now and making artwork full time, which is what I do now. I'm I was a teacher for a long time, international teacher, traveled to different countries like South Korea and Myanmar and taught there. Just sort of watching crypto, investing in it here and there and kind of just following the stories. And, it's got these grand narratives, like as, we're all like in the middle of one right now, where, you've got heroes and villains and so much drama. So when DAOs started becoming a more popular idea, more popular thing, I got the Bankless DAO airdrop, and that was sort of my first airdrop and my first entry into what is possible with DAOs. And so I was there from day one in the Bankless DAO and kind of just figuring out what we're all figuring out what we're doing there, what's going to happen next, and I just started noticing that like there's all these great like inside things that are happening, inside jokes, and kind of this all this great stuff that's happening. And I could capture that, and I started drawing comics to capture like these moments that were happening inside of the DAO, and just kind of sharing them internally. And I got a lot of positive feedback from that, and it was very encouraging. And also with DAOs and with crypto, you send people little tips. So I was getting some money from making these comics, and that was just really encouraging and exciting. And I think it was around that time when I decided my teaching contract was ending, and I'd already been considering taking like a year off to kind of explore new things. And I was like, okay, this next year is just going to be about DAOs and making comics and seeing where that takes me. And so that's what I decided to do. And shortly after that is when I got into NFTs, when I realized I could be turning these comics into NFTs. And the first one that I did with that was this. It was my very first NFT was called the Bankless Nation. And it was kind of this large illustration of everything that's kind of going on in crypto. There's like a Bitcoin citadel in one corner, and then an Ethereum castle somewhere else, and just kind of this big map of what's happening in crypto. My interpretation of it. And then that just was very successful. It was especially within Bankless DAO, and it just sort of gave me this supercharged confidence and excitement about NFTs and what could happen, what's possible. Like I'm, a new artist to the space. I didn't really have like a very big Twitter following. I still don't really. I'm building it. But I could be funded, and I could like have this direct relationship with people, with collectors. And I just kind of explored that and looked around and seeing other artists who were kind of doing a similar thing. Eventually realized that like starting a Discord is probably a good thing to do. It allows you to have more direct communication with people, with collectors who want to talk to you and find out more about. I mean, it's like they're investing in the art, and they're also investing in me as a person, I think, to some extent. And they want to and they want to have that connection. They want to like get close to you, or a lot of them do, anyways. And it's just really, it's really cool how NFTs have directly enabled that.
Yeah, I mean, it's both the artwork's very interesting and the development is very interesting. As a quick aside, so definitely relate to the international teaching. My wife is from our area in the northeastern part of the U.S., but she taught in China for 2 years before we met, and some of the best stories that she has from her early 20s were like, how she would have a long weekend, and like her and one of her friends would go to Thailand for the weekend and go to some amazing resort and, stay there for $50 and have the time of their lives. And I like, that's awesome. I love that as a background.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Yeah. To me, it felt like a little bit of a cheat code. Like, actually, before the teaching, I was working as an accountant in a bank. It's kind of funny how where I am now from that, but it was sort of a very typical sea of cubicles type 9 to 5 job, and I was just miserable there for a year. And so, for me, international teaching was an escape from the traditional corporate world. And yes, I think that's always sort of been a call to me. And that's also kind of why I'm drawn into what I am now, doing now, because similar, like, I just don't want to work in a cubicle if I can avoid it.
Yeah. I mean, there is, and I think you're touching on like a broader theme within I'm going to say the crypto space in general is like people that are looking at, let's call it traditional finance or traditional organizations or traditional work norms and saying, this sucks, like this is not, it's not conducive to, making an enjoyable life or an interesting life. I would say for a lot of people, it's not, it's not conducive to, even things as simple as like being able to build wealth or, and I don't mean wealth in the extravagant sense. I mean wealth in the sense of like, you know, modern, a lot of modern businesses and organizations aren't conducive to improving your general, economic standing. There's a lot of situations where you go to the cube farm and, you put together financial models or you actualize financial statements and you grind through that and you do it for 20 years and you say, well, what have I done? What have I accomplished? And I think we're in a place in the NFT space, into decentralized finance, where people are saying there's got to be something better.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree with everything that you just said. Yeah. It's, you see it all over the place now. I think especially in these last couple of years, sort of with the GameStop saga and with this surge of, I don't know if you followed the anti-work movement, like on Reddit. People are just sick of not working, because I think people really love to work and they want to work when they're excited about, when they have ownership over the thing that they're doing and they're like, I'm a meaningful contributor here. My work is valued and I own part of it. I own a part of this thing I'm building. And that's just not the case in 99% of traditional jobs. You own nothing. You just come in and, work for the man.
It's something about having that ownership in what you create and achieving flow, to use a term that's probably overused, but there's a reason it's a bit of a cliche, because there's a lot of truth to it. People want to do things where they can lose themselves in their tasks because it's enjoyable. And then, just like you said, at the end of the day, they want to have something and say, I did this, I made this, I was part of this in a genuinely meaningful way.
Yeah. I think that's definitely a huge thing that I'm seeing happening in DAOs and in NFTs. Like I was just, the Bankless DAO season 6 kickoff was today, and just listening to people talk, like, there's a lot of crazy stuff going on right now in crypto, but everyone's just really excited to be like still building things and still, even though it's hard, there's a deep satisfaction from doing work that you choose to do on your terms. That you just, you can't replace that with something else.
Agreed. So get back closer to the work that you're doing. Explain to me what a Chippi is.
Sure. Yeah. So a Chippi is a character from my comics and from the NFTs that I create, the Bankless locations, and it's kind of this white blob with black and white with eyes and a mouth, very very simple, very minimalistic style, and it's actually a character like I'd drawn from years ago, just like I would doodle. I would make comics in kind of a notebook that I was keeping and not showing to anybody. I've shared a few of them inside of some of my old comics I've uncovered in the Chippi Discord, just with people. Just like just a character that exists in this world that I'm in the process of creating. Um, and so, yeah, they exist inside of this bankless world where everything is crypto, and yeah, that's where they go on adventures. They have things happen to them, and just drawing from things that are mostly from things that are happening in crypto in the news, and kind of interpreting it and putting it into this. Sometimes it's like a medieval aesthetic. Sometimes they have like castles and things like that. But sometimes it's like, I don't know. There's a wide range of things that I draw on when I put them in. But so anyway, yeah, that's what a Chippi is, and it's the PFP project that I've created, where I'm creating 500 of these one-of-one Chippis, and I think I'm currently at about 350 out of 500 of that, and so. In my NFT project, if you own one of these Chippis, your Chippi will appear somewhere in one of these larger creations, one of the locations. So my latest one was Goblin Town. I think I put about 80 to 90 people's individual Chippis just somewhere inside of that illustration. So it sort of turns into a little bit of a Where's Waldo type situation as well, where you'll have your Chippi and you'll be hunting for it and searching for it, and maybe you'll recognize other people's Chippi as well. So yeah, that's sort of what Chippi is in a nutshell.
When I saw Goblin Town, Where's Waldo is the first thing that I thought of. I thought, oh, this is so cool. I like, again, like for me, it was an instant nostalgic trip to being a kid in the library in the small rural school that I grew up in, and going to having a library period, a couple times a week, and going in, like the only thing I wanted to do was go and look through the Where's Waldo books and like find all the little characters that are doing different things and they're going on adventures, and that was it. And it's funny, so I think I dropped it in a conversation, a DM that Beantoven and Beantalk and I were all in, and I think Beantoven, that was the first thing that he said too. It's like, oh, it's like Where's Waldo. And the other thing I want to quickly go back and touch on about the Chippies themselves, and it's something you mentioned, is that like they're simply drawn, and there's something I've really enjoyed about that too, in the sense that it very much seems like a kind of a blank canvas on which you can lay characteristics very easily. And it seems like it's very conducive to doing that, because you're starting with something that's very straightforward and you can build from there pretty easily, right?
Yeah, it is absolutely. It's a blank canvas. And then the challenging part is just, how to make them all unique, right? Like what things you're going to add. I love that you brought up Where's Waldo. I'm a child of the 90s, and that's a huge part of my nostalgia, as well as I can't count the hours that I spent like studying Where's Waldo, and there were other books as well that were kind of in a similar vein. I think probably trying to copy the Where's Waldo books a bit, but that were also quite good. So happy for that comparison.
It's a very gratifying process. Like, I mean, when I think about like traditional art, let's say, if you look at a Monet, you can appreciate craftsmanship, and you can find, detail and determine style and approach. But there's something about that, like instant gratification of looking at, something in that, like that hunt and find style, where like, every corner you look at, there's like something new to discover, and you don't have to you don't have to be a student of art history to appreciate. You can just like dive into
Yeah,
it.
that's a really good way of putting it. I think it's very yeah. I mean, obviously that's why children love it. Like we've got lots of Chippi inside of the Discord who've gotten Chippi for their children because they enjoy like looking at the pictures with their kids. And one of our members talks about how it's great for him to share these pieces with his kids because it's a way for him to like explain to his kids what he does in crypto, like what crypto is about, and just kind of share that because it can be hard talking to a 5-year-old, I imagine, about smart contracts, keeping their interest.
Yeah, no, that's very fair. So to pivot the conversation just a little bit, obviously we're in some pretty, I hate to say unprecedented times because again, I feel like that's very cliche. You know, especially right now, we're in a bear market from a macro standpoint. We are navigating the FTX scenario or the FTX situation, the FTX debacle. How do you see the NFT space evolving in reaction to what is going on in general and maybe even some of the more specific circumstances that we're navigating right now?
That's a really good question. I think that this FTX debacle Ponzi scheme is really took almost everyone by complete surprise. It was, we talk about decentralization a lot in crypto and the importance of that, but then there's always sort of been a like, oh, but Coinbase is fine, but FTX is fine. Like these are big exchanges, like they make their money off trading fees. Like there's little risk. Like you should put it in a ledger, but like if you have to keep it on the exchange, like it's probably not the worst thing in the world. And now, like, I don't know, like after this week, people will really have to reevaluate a lot of these things. And I think in the coming weeks and months, I think there's going to be probably more pain to come as all of this sort of gets unwound. I'm not like I listen to lots of crypto podcasts. I don't really get too deep into like I'm basically like kind of just regurgitate things that I hear, so I don't really know what like all the implications are going to be. But I guess my instincts here tell me lots of these NFT projects will probably go bankrupt and close shop. And my sister just messaged me before we got on this podcast how the Yuga Labs was keeping a lot of their treasury on FTX, but got it off in time, I guess. But there are probably projects that are exposed, and now what? And I guess that's something we knew from the beginning going into NFTs. We still don't know what NFTs are really. And it's sort of like the ICO thing all over again, where, all of they almost became like startups and you're investing in these companies. But then there's also like, some are just artists and some are just like artists making art and like, here, I'm selling you my art directly. And it's not about being a brand or a company beyond just like that artist selling their artwork to people. So I think there's a lot of things to like separate there. And for someone like me, like, I'm fine. My portfolio hurts because I'm a crypto believer and we're all like suffering in that sense. But as far as my NFT project itself, like, I'm not building a metaverse. I don't have like employees. Like My sister helps me out for free. I give her some NFTs and lots of gratitude. And yeah, so I guess like it really, for me, I'm lucky that I'm a small, this is like a small business. This is like this is just me selling my art to people. And I think it'll be tougher to sell NFTs in the next year. Tougher for me, probably. Tougher for everybody. But I think I'll stick around. And I think lots of people will. And then the ones that were just had grown large, and it's fine to grow large, and it's great to have these ideas and these ambitions. But unfortunately, I think in this unprecedented time, it's gonna a lot will probably have to fold. Sadly, yeah.
Well, and that unprecedentedness, that's a sword that cuts both ways. It's we have seen unprecedented growth, and I think we are, in the midst of, and we'll probably continue to see probably some unprecedented failure. And FTX being a really good example. I saw earlier on today that BlockFi has halted withdrawals, at least temporarily. To me, that's not a real encouraging sign. I would put them in that same basket of crypto organizations that had grown like large and stable enough to where we thought, oh, it's BlockFi. I mean, I know probably half the people that I know that I know anything about their crypto exposure, probably either done something on or used BlockFi, and it's just, it's just another platform. And so when you hear about these large players really surprising people with the, types of exposure and what contagion will look like, it's definitely an unsettling feeling.
Yeah, the year that I was an accountant at a large U.S. bank was also, it was in 2008 when I was working there. And that was quite a year. And this feels sort of like that. Like this feels like has parallels of that where, everything seemed fine, but then the contagion spreads and like the dominoes start to fall and you find out maybe BlockFi was exposed to Alameda and so it spreads, and maybe they were doing everything else fine. Let's say, I don't know if they were, but if they're exposed to that thing, who seemed very legitimate and trustworthy from the outside, point of view, maybe they should have had people, really digging into the financial statements more, or I don't know. It's really, yeah.
And I mean, you hit on a really important point. So much of this contagion, again, to use another now cliche term, will affect organizations that were not doing anything wrong. So BlockFi stops withdrawals. That doesn't necessarily mean that BlockFi was running a giant Ponzi scheme. I don't want to speculate, down that path. It's just a matter of exposure. They could have been doing as much due diligence as possible and trying to do everything right, and the exposure is unavoidable. And I think that's unfortunately the vast majority of individuals that are affected by these failures fall into that exact basket. It's like, hey, I was making the best choices I could with the information I had at the time, and this thing came out of left field, and now what do I do?
Yeah. It's really hard. And it's going to hurt so many retail people, average people who are just got like onboarded into crypto, and lots of veterans too. Like everybody, like there's, um, and it's gonna set things back. It's gonna be, it's gonna be something the industry learns from, I hope, and does better the next time. And yeah, I guess like we, not we, but people in the crypto industry replicated like lots of the problems of traditional centralized finance, and we just a lot, and then the majority of the crypto world kind of just accepted that and was okay with it because everything was going up and everything was fine. But now's a chance for us to reevaluate those ideas and approach this thing from a more pure standpoint, from a more decentralized, truly decentralized place, I hope.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely agree. So I want to pivot away from the current happenings because frankly it's a little depressing. I want to I want to pivot back to NFTs and in the work that you're working on. So so you're talking about Chippies being a PFP project and the ongoing larger the scenes that you're creating. And first, I want to see if what's coming down the pike. I mean, is there a particular is there a new setting or scene that you're working on or conceptualizing now?
Yes, there is. So I am making all of these bankless locations, of which Goblin Town was the most recent. Goblin Town was the sixth one, so I'm working on number 7 now. I'm sort of in my kind of rest in phase right after Goblin Town. I'm taking like a couple weeks to kind of gather my thoughts, and I'll start sketching out the next one, which I did announce. I said it was going to be Hodler Beach, and I'm pretty sure this week has made me think, oh, like there's a lot going on. Maybe I need to incorporate. I will incorporate the events that have happened this week as well. But so the next location I'm going to be working on is called Hodler Beach, which we'll have Chippi doing beach stuff and probably tie in a lot of whatever is relevant in crypto news, but with a sort of a theme of the people, the Chippi who are chilling on Hodler Beach are the they're the hodlers. They're not trading. They're not getting wrapped up so much in like the day-to-day stuff. So a lot of them are just they're just there. They're waiting to check on their crypto 20 years from now. So they're not as frantic as we all are this week, like checking the news every day.
Constantly flipping through Twitter. So I gotta know what I gotta do to get a Beethoven beach concert into that. I don't know how many PFPs we need to buy, but we will figure out a way to make that happen.
So I part of Chippi, I guess I didn't mention this before. I take commissions for Chippi. So about half of the Chippi I create are just sort of from my imagination, and I put those out there. But the other half are people approaching me for commissions, and I tailor a Chippi to their ideas. And so I'd be more than happy to take new. And so that's how we could have a Beethoven concert. No promises on what exactly they'll be doing, but I'll definitely take your the concert into. I try to put Chippi towards whatever kind of vibe they're giving out. So if we've got like a composer or a musician type Chippi, then I want to sort of fit them into a musical sort of situation.
We'll make that happen. We'll cover the commission for that, and so we'll have to figure out a way to get Bean Talk worked in there too. And yeah, we'll have to chat about how to make that happen. The other thing that with the with the continued evolution of the locations project, have you ever considered like I feel like a lot of NFT projects are tying like real world objects or like other components, and I feel like that has been one of the real like kind of hot use cases for NFTs. Like, if you buy an NFT of I'm just using an example, a pair of sneakers, the NFT, you get the NFT, and then you can like get a pair of sneakers to go along with it. Or, like, have you ever considered like physical objects? Like, if I buy a Chippy PFP, like, can I get a little stuffed Chippy or something to go along with that? Or is it something you've ever thought through?
Yeah. It's actually come up quite a bit. There's definitely some Chippy who want that to happen very badly, and I have been very, very slow in responding to the demand for physical items. But I think I'm far enough along now that I could say there will be some physical items on the way. So one thing I've wanted to do from the beginning is get some prints. So I'm going to have prints available, hopefully pretty soon, of the locations. Got a Chippy mug design that I'm working on. Actually, quite a long time ago, my very first piece was turned into a puzzle, a physical puzzle.
That's so cool.
I don't have it in the room here with me, but yeah, it was. That was through Bankless DAO and Metafactory. We dropped like a limited edition. I think there was only like 90 copies made or something like that. But that was fun. So I definitely am interested in the physical side. But I was sort of, I've had some roadblocks along the way, and now mostly me just like dragging my feet and like it's a world that I'm not used to navigating. Like I don't like I'm having to like reach out to people who have done this a lot more, and like especially the physical side, like what's the best way. It's not just about like exporting your drawing and slapping it onto a shirt. You have to, there's like all these things you got to like figure out about it. And that's a bit of a learning experience for me.
Yeah. I feel like it adds a new dimension of complexity going into the physical world. And especially if it's an item that would require like some type of larger scale manufacturing to make happen. I mean, puzzles are a pretty good example in the sense that in a certain way they're probably relatively straightforward, but you can't like sit at your house and make them yourself.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very fair. Well, that's really cool. I feel like that is just a unique dimension. And you're talking about like how we don't really know what NFTs are yet. I feel like there are so many potential future use cases that involve having a token that is more than just one thing. I mean, at Beanstalk, we've talked about having tokens that represent things like locked liquidity or actually, theoretically, we've got the fertilizer project for the barn raise is itself an NFT project. We have NFTs for folks that that contributed to recapitalization, and like there are all these like multi-dimensional use cases that seem pretty exciting, kind of out there on the horizon.
Yeah, that is exciting. It's there's so many different directions, so many different uses, and I think what we will probably see in the coming years is just more, a couple things. I think we'll see like a flourishing of ideas and use cases for NFTs that people hadn't really thought of yet. And then more distinction. Like now we just call we call it all NFTs, but there will be lots of more distinct things. Like this one is a PFP, like artwork NFT. This one like generates yield, and it's a claim on these assets over here. And like there can be so many. Yeah, maybe we'll have to develop like language to describe like all of these different capabilities, which is going to be exciting.
And I can even see, maybe out in the future where the term NFT itself becomes, I'm going to say like, dated or, archaic, the reason I say that is, and I'm grasping at straws a little bit, but I know that Reddit they just had their NFT project that they didn't use the term NFT for. And I mean, you were buying an NFT, but you probably know the details better than I do. Really a really clever way to approach NFTs where you weren't using that language and so didn't have the same hesitancy or other ideas that might not be considered real desirable right now.
Yeah. And I think what Reddit did was really smart. I think they had an amazingly successful rollout of their NFTs, their digital collectibles. And I think,
thank you.
That's what they did there is I think the beginning of what we'll eventually see with more clarity of language. Like calling it a digital collectible is actually a lot more descriptive. Like NFT means nothing to the majority of people, but you say a digital collectible, even to the people who know what NFT stands for, it doesn't really mean that much because it's so broad. It's just so, but to call it a digital collectible is really smart because that is what this is. This is a digital thing that you can collect and you can own. And then there you go. You understand it all inside of that like little description.
Completely agreed. So it makes me think of whenever I would talk to folks about NFTs, that were skeptical or whatever, the analogy that I almost always use are things like concert tickets. So at some point in the future, you buy a concert ticket, and that concert ticket is an NFT, and that NFT gives you not only physical access to the concert itself, but it also entitles you to a recording of the concert. Or you bought a special edition that gives you the ability to meet the artist, or gives you the ability to claim a poster or whatever. And in that future world, you just bought a concert ticket. Like it's not, you don't use the term NFT any more than Reddit did with their digital collectibles. It's a digital collectible. It's a concert ticket. It just happens to use blockchain as its platform. It is a token that has certain characteristics, that are associated with it, and it like the term becomes archaic.
Yeah. Totally. And you're really touching on something that's very exciting to me there. Like the way you're talking about this ticket, that's an NFT, and then it unlocks all of these other possibilities. Like, and I think what we will see, what I hope to see, and I think we are seeing in some cases, are artists and creators of all kinds becoming really creative in how they use this technology to the fullest extent. And just one of the concepts I heard of is something called like a factory NFT, where you own this and it entitles you to like the NFT is sort of like a productive asset where whatever, like the artist will keep creating things, and anyone who owns this factory NFT gets like the first choice. Like maybe they can mint something from them for free or at a discount, or it unlocks just all of these different things like you were talking about. Maybe it's a backstage pass with someone, like this ticket. Like it just, the relationships now can be so like composable. It's just like, writing like a smart contract or something. You can write, the artists will be able to write the terms of what this NFT means in very detailed ways that is just like it's mind blowing to think about. Like we're not even at the tip of the iceberg here with what people are going to eventually figure out how to use them. Like, oh yeah, like this. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a great point that I have never thought about. And now like it all, like what it, I mean, that concept, it strikes me as like in just, sitting here talking and thinking out loud, it makes me think of like essentially like a digital coupon. And just for that single use case that you mentioned, and to come back, I have a close personal friend that's an artist, and he makes comics, and later on when we're done talking here, I'm going to shoot him a text and be like, hey, you know what you could do with an NFT? You could set up a smart contract that people that held these NFTs would get a 20% discount on every piece of artwork that you put out, like that. And that isn't even tokenizing the artwork. It's tokenizing the function.
Absolutely. Does your friend turn these comics into NFTs?
So he is in the process of trying to figure that out, and I keep saying to him, man, like you got to do this. And he's an artist and a colorist, and like right now he works in traditional comic books, print comic books, and he's like looking to make that step. And I know that like he's still trying to figure out the digital component. It's so different from traditional comic book publishing that I think he's still got some apprehension, but like so close to being ready to make that jump, and I'm excited to watch as he does that.
That's really cool. That's exciting. Yeah. I've been talking to a few of my more creative friends and trying to encourage them to check it out. I think like there's no better time. Like we're going to be in this bear for a while. This is the perfect time to just like play, like get in here and just start creating things. And that's what this thing is for. Like I never thought, like when I was first getting into crypto, years ago, like that this would be such an unlock for artists, for creators, like that crypto for creators. It's I just didn't put those two together, and it's such a good time for people making art, I think.
So true. So as kind of a last item, and we're close to the hour, but I want to pivot to Beanstalk real quick. And obviously part of the thing that drew me to Goblin Town was the Beanstalk reference. And I didn't bring you on here expecting you to be an expert in our project, but I guess I will say, or will ask, what led you to give Beanstalk put the barn in the silo in Goblin Town?
So actually, funnily, like I drew the barn before I knew it was going to be Beanstalk. I just drew a barn there. I'm like, oh, this looks like a barn belongs here. Because I think I was also going to have like the yield farmers. Like I already knew I was going to have them over there. To be honest, I discovered Beanstalk through my research of Goblin Town, and I was looking at people that got hacked and people that like got hurt. And so that,
ouch.
and, you know, like, and it says nothing at all about like the, like good or bad about like this happens, like we're in crypto. This is wild. So I have lots of projects that I totally respect and think are wonderful that are in Goblin Town. And it's like, yeah, it's the ones that got more presence, I guess, were ones that had problems like that would lead to, because that's what Goblin Town is about. It's about like these problems. And yeah, so that's how I discovered it.
And, you know, it's funny. As we have navigated the exploit, and I'm using the royal we for, you know, the Beanstalk community, you know, the DAO, or however you want to envision that. Obviously, the exploit was awful, and you know, I would say that you're talking to three folks that, you know, probably, you know, have lost some funds through that exploit and are hoping to, you know, see the protocol bounce back. But at the same time, the amount of recognition and the opportunity to talk with people about what the project is and what it does and how it works, and, you know, be able to explain the difference between, you know, a rug versus a hack versus a governance exploit, and, you know, go through the barn raise and the recapitalization effort and all those things. It's given us exposure that, you know, I hate to say money can't buy, but it's been a really unique experience for our group that probably wouldn't have happened the same. I'm sure it wouldn't happen the same way. Might not have happened nearly as quickly if that exploit hadn't happened. So it's been an interesting turn of events.
Yeah. Yeah. Like we've all, like, if you've been in crypto for long enough, like something, you're going to be exposed to something. It's just like a matter of time. And bouncing back, being able to recover, that's the key. That's, we kind of like, I think the mentality in crypto, I think people who are really passionate into crypto sometimes like think we're 10 or 20 years further along than we actually are. And that like, we're in this place where smart contracts are perfect. And like, this is all going to, you know, there's like, we're done with hacks and with exploits and things like that. But it's still very real. And we have, people are such a huge factor in all of this. And as like trustless as we want to make things, you know, we still need those people that are building it, and we need to trust them a lot, like in lots of cases. Yeah, that's I'm really glad to hear that like the community seems to be like recovering, and you know, I've been since I've like started following Beanstalk now, and like I'm definitely like observing it now, and I you know, I wish all the best. Like it's it's something that everyone's vulnerable to, as you know,
a great learning opportunity. And, you know, I think our group of, you know, core DAO members and contributors would say, you know, better to have it happen now than a couple of years down the road when we're significantly larger. And if you're going to learn a hard lesson, you want to learn it early.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, the first DAO, like
the DAO,
all of Ethereum the DAO caused, you know, Ethereum to fork. So like, that's insane, you know. but the community bounced back. Like the Ethereum community is like, you know, stronger than it's ever been. So, yeah, like you said, that's the time to learn those lessons as early as possible. I lost my first hot wallet, my first web wallet. Like, I just deleted it, and thought that I, lost everything. Wasn't much. It was a few NFTs. It was like a little bit of ETH, and yeah, I just accidentally deleted it, and it was painful. But I'm so glad that I learned that lesson the hard way, because now I am doing everything I can. There's still risk. There's still vulnerabilities, but I'm doing everything I can now to not make the same mistakes.
Yep, that's all you can do. Well, Perchy, this was great. Thank you so much for talking to me today. Thank you for hopping on the podcast and telling us about what you're working on. And good luck as the projects continue to roll out.
Thanks, Rex. Thanks so much. Yeah, this has been just a absolute pleasure talking to you. This was really fun.
You can find Perchy on Twitter at perchy.eth. That's perchy.eth. You can also find his project on Twitter at Chippi NFT. That's CHIPPINFT. And you can find him on the web at linktree/ChippiNFT. That's linktr.ee/ChippiNFT. The Bean Pod is a production of Beanstalk Farms, a decentralized autonomous organization. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Medium, Discord, and our home on the web at bean.money. You can also find me on Twitter at RexTheBean. And as a final reminder, this podcast is not financial advice. Thanks again for listening.